Brighter Shores is a new point-and-click MMORPG developed by Andrew Gower, one of the lead developers of Runescape, and you'll see a lot of similarities between the two games. It's got a classic art style, really in-depth professions, interesting and secretive quests, and an incredibly grindy progression system. Brighter Shores released into early access this week on Steam, and I've played it non-stop since it came out, and I'm having a ton of fun. I've got through all of the story, each of the 4 zones that are out right now, and I've tried all of the professions. I'm at around level 350 at the time of recording, so hopefully I can give a really good review of the game as it is right now. There's a lot to love here, and this game is not like most other MMOs out there, but because of that, I think a lot of players will run into issues quite fast or struggle getting into the game. So I want to set an expectation of kind of what the game is about and go over it in detail, the good, the bad, and overall, if it's worth playing. So let's start with what is Brighter Shores. Well, you play as a new guard in a town called Hopeport, like a port city, and you follow a story that takes you across different zones called episodes. And each time you reach one of these new zones, you meet new people, you get new quests, new side quests, and you get new professions. Your main gameplay loop is progressing through the story, fighting monsters, and skilling up these many professions. The game is fairly sandbox outside of the story. You'll spend lots of your time gathering, crafting, and leveling, doing side quests, finding secrets, and solving some of the many puzzles and hidden things in the game. As part of the story, you also pick your class. There's the Cryo Knight, the Guardian, or the Hammer Mage, and these determine your element and the type of armor that you wear. I went with the Cryo Knight, which wears plate armor. There's Guardians that wear the bones of animals and monsters. And then there's the Hammer Knight that uses big stone armor. And there are crafted professions tied to all of these different armors that you'll unlock as you play through the game. The game is currently free on Steam in early access, and you can do everything in the first 2 areas for free. Then there's a premium pass of, I believe, about £5, so $6-ish, to progress into the rest of the game. Right now, on an early access release, there are 4 zones, 4 episodes, and a total of 18 professions across them all, with many more being planned. So now let's talk good and bad, the main reasons to play the game, and then some maybe problems that might make you avoid it. So let's start first with probably the most important, the professions. This is the main focus of the game, in my opinion, and it's where you'll spend the majority of your time. Everything ties back to professions, and they're important even in the main quest. So there are 18 professions split amongst the 4 zones, with more planned in the future. Each of these professions can be leveled all the way up to a whopping 500, level 500, giving a massive grind for those willing to put the time in. And the progressing these professions unlocks new quests, unlocks secrets, parts of the map, gives you better potions, better gear, usable items. And just like RuneScape, there are capes. And these capes not only look cool, but they extend the further you take these professions. So if you've got level 500 in a profession, you can flex that to everyone around you. And I gotta say, these professions are incredible. You start with the basics, gatherer, fishing, cooking, that kind of thing, all in Zone 1, Episode 1. And these are pretty interesting, but what you unlock later is much cooler. There's Detective in Act 4. This involves going around the town and stopping criminals, investigating crimes, and lots more that I'll keep that for when you get there. And the further you level these professions, the more of this cool content you unlock. And there's so much attention to detail here too. If you're fishing, you have to manually jab at the fish to catch them. Crafting makes you feel like you are crafting items. So for example, if you're doing blacksmithing, you have to get a way to fire up the furnace. You have to bring that to the furnace, fire it up. You have to load the ore in one by one, smelt it, refine it, and then smelt each individual item that you want. And every single item has its own animation to really bring the professions to life. Now, it's important to know that professions are zone specific. So in episode 1, you have fishing, but you can only fish in episode 1. One episode has mining, but there are only mineable things in that zone. And I won't ruin the surprise, but lots of the professions do link up. So things that you gather in some zones feed into others, and there are some massive quests that require really high profession levels to complete. So what feels very, very secluded and separated at the start, once you actually get through it and get to the end, you'll realize how much everything actually ties together and how important working on something in an old episode can benefit you in a later one. But yeah, the professions are easily the most fun part of the game for me. I could talk about them for like a full hour, but I don't want to ruin the surprise of what these professions are and what they turn into and all the different things you unlock, because discovering it is part of the fun. The next big strength in this game is its quest design. We're in a world now where games just spoon feed you. They give you a quest, they pop a big yellow icon on your map, and you plod along to it, you follow it, and you go to the next quest icon and you level up. Not in Brighter Shores. The quests are actually hard. They're really old school and make you think. A person will give you a rough idea, head over to the east, I saw something, and that's it. And you've got to go around town, talk to people, and work out where you're going. And you'll hit roadblocks where you have to go and complete profession requirements, meaning these quests take a long time to complete. I've still got quests from the first zone, the first episode, my first couple of hours of the game, that I still haven't got enough requirement of certain things to go and finish. So they're hard to finish, but they give really good rewards and unlock new parts of the game when you do finish them. One unlocks a new way to transport and store items, making everything else faster. There's a quest in the final zone that gives you access to the Merchant Guild, which unlocks player trading, and most quest rewards haven't even been discovered yet. There's even some side quests that have not been completed, and likely won't be completed for a long time. There's a quest that asks you to complete a giant monument, and this needs almost max foraging skill, like level 480 or something. A giant puzzle quest that needs you to bring crafted items from a range of professions. And overall, the journey through this game of discovery is one that I haven't felt in MMOs for a long time. When you do finally crack these really big quests, you feel like you've achieved something. It's very rewarding. Okay, so on top of these two big things, let's just talk about some other things the game does right. From my, 50 plus hours of playing over the last 5 or 6 days, I don't think I have encountered a single major bug or a single issue that's made me get frustrated. The game is incredibly polished for something in early access. I've played full release games that feel less polished than this. You can tell this game was made by a developer who knows how to make a polished MMO. The game's been out for, 5 days, and they've already released multiple patches, adding in features that players have been asking for, which is a very promising sign. On top of this, the old school art style is fantastic. The animations are great, the music's top notch, and some of the game is separately animated. There is massive attention to detail that you don't even see in some AAA MMOs. Okay, so there's a lot to love here. This is a very special and unique MMO, but it's not without its problems. So let's talk about the issues with Brighter Shores and why you might want to give this one a miss, or at least wait until it's out of early access. So first up, there is one big problem, and it's how they separate the episodes and how these episodes separate the professions. This is something that most people are complaining about, and Andrew Gower has even addressed this and plans to make changes and improve it. The main issue here for me isn't the professions. Having fishing in episode 1 and no fish in the rest of the game is fine. Having mining in episode 3, because that's where all the rocks are, is fine. It works. And it's an interesting mechanic, and when you finish the game, you realize everything ties together and everything is interlinked. So I think that does work. However, in episode 1, you have a combat profession called Guard. This is a full profession that levels to 500, you equip gear, you fight mobs, you get stronger, and there is a cape for the big milestones. Great. But then the second you get to episode 2, there's a new combat profession called Scout, and everything from episode 1 doesn't work. Your gear doesn't work, your combat level is back to 0, and you have to level all over again. And this is the same for every new episode. And the main problem is it's not like you're a knight in episode 1 and then you're an archer in 2 and then a mage in 3. These combat professions don't give you abilities or change the combat in any way. They're identical. They are just names of the combat for that zone. I know they have their reasoning for laying the game out like this, but it's one thing I think really needs to change if this game is going to grow and reach more people. If they gave each combat profession in each zone good rewards, like get to 50 as a guard and you get +1 defense in all of the zones, or get 100 in scout and your range damage goes up, then that's a really good incentive, and it's leveling all the way in one benefits the others, and it makes your character stronger. But right now, there's none of that. It's just a repetitive chore that it seems to do more harm than good. The next issue I found is with the leveling. I think there's going to be problems with level scaling as this game is out for longer. Right now, you can get from level 1 to 20 in any profession very fast. If you know what you're doing, you can hit 20 in just an hour or two. Just chonking it out, just working on it non-stop. But the scaling after 20 is so slow. It takes hours upon hours to go from just 20 to 30. And unlike games like RuneScape, where you can just semi-AFK, the game requires you to click, click, click. Every single fish, click. Every single forageable item, cabbage, herb, plant, click. Every tree, you have to click on. Go in between maps as you wait for them to respawn. Again, it's all manual. Unless you're crafting, you're fully actively playing the game. And I don't think many people will want to commit to clicking on the same fish or the same tree actively for the hundreds of hours that is needed to grind out these skills. It would make sense if it's slowed down at 50 or 100, but 1 to 20 being fast and then 20 to 500 being really slow is going to turn people away. Another thing that adds to this is how the gatherables in the world are reused as you level. Lots of the gathering kind of cycle. So at level 2 fishing, you'll be gathering eels in Eel Lake. Cool. Once you hit 16, and then as you go to like level 4, there's a new fish. And level 6, you go to the beach. And level 8, you go fish from a pool. That kind of thing, you know? But then once you hit 16, the next fish is rock eels back at Eel Lake. They're the same fish in the same place, just with a different name. And then you would go to the same place as before, and the fish has a different name, and so on and so on and so on. Say you grind this out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you hit fishing level 320. You're going to be gathering greater eels from Eel Lake. And this is the same for every single profession. The tree cycle, the monsters cycle, all cycles, everything. So you're constantly playing in the same zone, fighting the same mobs, and gathering the same things. They just have different names, which, considering how slow and time consuming the leveling is, it doesn't feel rewarding enough when your big milestone is going back to where you were 10, 20 hours ago and gathering the same item. There are certain things to speed it up. There's XP potions that give like a 10% increase. You can enchant your tools to give 0.4% XP increase per enchant, but none of that is enough to make the grind feel less painful. I think there'd be a small amount of people that will grind all the way to 500, but the vast majority, I believe, are going to hit 20, see the slowdown, and move on to another game, which is sad because some of the main fun questing are locked behind quite high profession levels. Some of the really cool content in the game is locked behind profession levels. So I do think that's something that maybe needs to be tweaked a little bit. The only other thing to talk about as part of this review is the things that aren't quite in the game yet, as I don't want to comment on those. So right now, combat abilities are not in the game. So combat is basically just auto-attacking each other. You just bonk each other every couple of seconds, and whoever rolls the bigger number wins. They plan to add different abilities, likely based on your class, so different elemental abilities for different classes. Can't say if it's good or bad yet because there's just nothing to talk about. We're still waiting on new episodes that will tie together some of the professions, so that might make something with one profession that doesn't have an output right now make more sense. For example, there is a profession in Chapter 4 called leatherworking, and right now there's nothing to do with the leather once you make it, but this will likely make more sense when we have episode 5. The stuff that is in the game works great, but yeah, there's still a few missing links. Also, trading and PvP is not yet in the game, so can't speak for any of that at this time, but that's pretty much everything. So overall, should you play Brighter Shores right now? Should you wait, or should you just give this one a miss? I would say it depends heavily on the type of gameplay you're looking for. On release, this game had mixed reviews for its first couple of days on Steam, and I believe that's because people came in expecting the next RuneScape, a big, open world, fully fleshed out MMO with all of the same content. But that's not what this game is. It's an episode-based game with a massive focus on professions and long-term quests and making your own goals. Right now, at like 5 or so days in, it's gone to mostly positive because the people that have stuck around have got through the chapters and realized how everything works together and how good the game actually is. If you're looking for an action or combat or, a PvP game, that ain't this, at least not right now. If you want to blast through the story and get instant gratification, you won't get that here. Just going between zones, you get hit with level requirements. Like you have to be level like 1.5 something, like 153 or something to reach zone 3. And this goes up for the later zones. So this is a game where you have to pace yourself and you have to commit. But those that do commit and put the time in, there is so much reward here. If you want a game with old school challenge, discovery, rewarding progression, and in-depth profession systems, this is one of the best games I've played like this for years. I've been completely hooked to this game non-stop. I'm like 50 hours in like 5 days, and I have loved every minute of this. Discovering each of the new zones, the different factions, unlocking and leveling the professions has been so much fun. I finished the story now, and I'm working on getting my skills up to get my first cape, complete some of the bigger side quests, and it's just so much fun. The best part is, all I've spent is like £5 on the premium pass. This is a really unique and special game with some of the most rewarding gameplay progression systems and an incredible developer behind it. If you enjoy like incremental games, slow progression games, please give this a try. It's completely free to try, but if you're on the fence, I would wait for the combat abilities and maybe wait to see if the grind gets reduced. At least the repeating content grind, which people are complaining about, the episodic, resets of your combat skills. Maybe wait to see what happens with that. But yeah, I love this game. I'm having so much fun, but I can definitely see this as a niche game. I think you'll know if this is for you. And lots of us have been waiting for a game like this for a long time. But yeah, that's it from me. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'll have a big beginner's guide coming out very soon too, so subscribe if you want to see that as soon as it's out. And I'd love to hear what you think of Brighter Shores in the comments. Does it interest you? Have you tried it? It's a very unique game, so I'm curious what people think. But that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.